South Korea in the foreseeable future, not someday in the distant future, in the foreseeable future. Now, when North and South Korea unify, first of all, a united Korea, a reunited Korea, will become one of the most exciting countries in the world, probably the most exciting country in the world for a decade or two. You will combine North Korean gigantic mineral resources and all sorts of natural resources and cheap, disciplined labor with South Korean capital and expertise. There will not be any more powerful country and exciting country in the world than a united Korea. You're right on the Chinese border. The Chinese have 1,300,000,000 people. I've been telling you about the changes in China, the continuing changes in China. So you cannot believe how well situated you are for the coming changes in the world once you unite. The Japanese are against it because Japan knows they cannot compete with a united Korea. Japan already has a declining population, staggering internal debt, a very high-cost place to do business, and few, if any, natural resources. So Japan doesn't want it to happen because it won't do them any good. At least they don't think it will. America doesn't want it to happen because America wants to have 40,000 troops on the Chinese border, so they're against it. But that doesn't mean it's not great for Korea. You will save huge amounts of money on defense. You won't have to have you won't have to have the draft anymore. You won't have to have all of these expensive military comings and goings. And likewise in North Korea, they won't have to have these expensive military comings and goings either. There are many reasons, and it will cost a little bit of money, not nearly as much as East Germany and West Germany, but when it happens, this is going to be an extremely exciting part of the world. And while the Japanese think it will hurt them, and it will hurt them competitively, look at the map. This will do wonders for all of northeastern Asia. Can you imagine a northeastern Asia without the tensions of North and South Korea, a potential war, even though there is no potential war as far as I'm concerned? Can you imagine what that would do for Northeast Asia? And if Northeast Asia could then be an example for the rest of Asia, the movement towards more and more cooperation and integration and unification in Asia will take place. So Japan may think it's bad for Japan, and it certainly is in some ways. Overall, this would be extremely good for Northeast Asia, and therefore for Asia as a whole, to set a new example. For those of you who wonder why I think things are positive in North Korea, you know, a little less than 3 years ago, the old man died, and the kid came to power in North Korea. Well, the kid grew up in Switzerland. The kid knows the difference. More important, his generals, when they were lieutenants and captains, went to Shanghai, Beijing, and Moscow. You couldn't go anyplace else. Now they go, and they look around and they say, oh my gosh, look what's happened in Beijing in the last 30 years. And they go home, and they look around, and nothing has happened. And they know it. So the people in North Korea now know about the outside world. You cannot lie to them anymore. Huge black market has developed in North Korea. Tens of thousands of Chinese are crossing the border, and Russians now. So they're getting lots of interaction with the outside world. I was in the port city, in North Korea called Rasun. I went there because Rasun is the northernmost ice-free port in Asia. The northernmost ice-free port in Asia. The Russians have just put in a new dock. They put in the railroad, a redeveloped Trans-Siberian Railroad into Rasun. The Chinese have just built a new dock. When I crossed the border from China, there were hundreds of Chinese. They just built a new immigration facility. It's obsolete. It opened last month. It's already too small. They're having to start building a new bridge and a new immigration facility because there's so much interaction now with China, and the Russians are starting to come too. When people saw me on the street, Since they don't see white people, they don't see Caucasians, they thought I was Russian. And so they would say hello to me in Russian. So it's all happening, they're opening up. I went to another border town too, called Tumen. Same thing is happening. Every day there's huge trade interaction between the countries. As you know, that happened down with Hong Kong as well. That happened in Central Europe. As some of those countries opened their borders more and more, that led to the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of communism and the reunification of East and West Germany. If I had said to you in 1985 that East and West Germany would be reunited in 5 years, I did not say it, by the way, but if somebody had said that, you would have thought they were crazy. In 1989, Willy Brandt, who was the preeminent German statesman of the time, was on German TV, and they said, will East and West Germany ever unite? And Willy Brandt, in 1989, on German television said, not in my lifetime. In 1989, Willy Brandt said on German television, there will not be reunification in my lifetime. Some of you are too young to remember 1989, but in 1989, the Berlin Wall collapsed, and East and West Germany were shortly reunited. So these things can happen faster than we expect. I expect the changes in North Korea to lead to positive changes for unification. President Park, to my astonishment, I have to say I don't admire most politicians. I do admire her moves towards unification. She understands what a huge bonanza it would be for Korea if it happens. Now, obviously, there's 70 years of animosity, and things will have to change. South Korea probably has to take the next step. Now, I'm not South Korean. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I have no right to tell you what to do, and I don't expect to tell you what to do. But if I were South Korea, I would start doing something to let North Korea know, hey, we're serious about this. For instance, you've had war games with the United States every year for many years. Call them off. And a suggestion, possibility. You could say one year, we're not going to have the war games this year. First of all, you don't need the war games. You've been having them every year for decades. You know what to do if there's a war. So call them off one year. Call up the kid in North Korea and say, we're not going to have the war games this year. We want to show you that we're serious about peace and unification. Or open the border. You know, back in 1988 and 87 and 89, the Austrians and the Hungarians just opened the border. Next thing you knew, there were all sorts of people going back and forth, and the next thing you knew, the Berlin Wall fell. So many things you could do. If you open your border, what do you think is going to happen? You think the North Korean army is going to come across the border? No, they're not going to come across the border. Some people may come across the border, but that's what you want. You want people coming and going. You want dramatic changes to open this thing up so that you can have unification. Because once there's unification, it's going to be fantastic for Korea, to repeat myself. It's going to be fantastic for Northeast Asia, and it's going to be fantastic for all of Asia. And we can start seeing more and more unification as is happening in Southeast Asia and other places. Just to give you a little more report, because I don't think many of you see people who go to North Korea. When I was there, I saw a lot of things. One of the most impressive things was I went to the open air market. It's a huge market, many hectares, maybe 15 or 20 hectares of big market with hundreds of entrepreneurs, hundreds of little kiosks and shops, and thousands of shoppers. This is communist North Korea, I mind you. But all of these guys, all these entrepreneurs were sitting there working away, and I was amazed at the goods that were available in this market. First of all, lots of food, lots of whiskey, lots of alcohol. You can get as drunk as you want to in this market because they had all sorts of alcohol from all over the world. Plenty of food, the idea of starving North Koreans. Maybe they're starving, but they're not starving in this market where I was, because there was magnificent amounts of food. They had all sorts of appliances. They had kitchen appliances. I didn't even know what they were. They're so advanced. They had many household appliances. Again, I didn't know what they were because they were so advanced. But all of this stuff is either smuggled in or comes through China. I met a person, she happens to be a lady, who runs a big, I won't say what kind, manufacturing enterprise up there. And her largest customer is South Korea. The Chinese give her orders. She sends them to China. They put made in Japan, made in Korea labels and send it here to South Korea. So it's already happening. It's happening in many ways. And I wish to goodness your politicians, and President Park is working towards making this a reality. I hope that all Northeast Asian politicians can get together and make this a reality, because it would be good for everybody here. I also, while I was there, I was able to, I needed an interpreter, obviously, but I had an interpreter. We went to various places. We went to bars. We went to public parks. We went up to the Russian border. We looked around quite extensively, and as I say, the Russians and the Chinese are putting a lot of money into that part of the world. Mr. Putin in Russia has redeveloped the Trans-Siberian Railroad. It goes down to Razin City now, which is, to repeat, it's the northernmost ice-free port. Mr. Putin's plan is you put the goods on the train in Korea. He eventually wants it to go down to Busan. Put the goods on the train in Korea. They get to Berlin 2 weeks sooner than if you put them on the boat. They get to Paris or Rome, wherever you want to. So geography is changing. That too is very good for Korea, the whole Korean peninsula. So there's a lot of things going on, which means this is all going to change. And you're at the right place at the right time. If my children weren't speaking Mandarin, I would probably teach them Korean, because it's going to be a very exciting place. And any MBA degrees you get in Korea or China will be much more valuable than in the United States. So I drink a toast to Korea, North and South, united. I hope it happens soon. Thank you.